Welcome, everybody, to the Something in the Air podcast brought to you by the Press of Atlantic City in conjunction with Stockton University. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci. We have new episodes for you on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, and we are recording this on a very, well, we'll say balmy, depending on where you are, Thursday here. It's March 11th as we're recording this. It is 52 at the shore. It's 62 where I am here in Pleasantville, and where our next guest is Gary Pavlis out in Mays Landing. It is 72 degrees, and we are welcoming Gary Pavlis, and he is and I'm going to try to hold my breath and say this all in one sentence here. We'll see. Agricultural and Natural Resources County Agent 2 for the Cooperative Extension of Atlantic County at the Rutgers, New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station, and the Interim County Extension Department Head for the Cooperative Extension of Cape May County with the Rutgers, New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station. Also, he was 1998 president of the American Wine Society. Did I get it all, Gary?
At least enough, anyway.
At least enough. All right, perfect. Well, it's good to be with you here. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us here. You really are the man who has made and continues to make the wine industry go around here in New Jersey. And I'm just going to start off from the top. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Could you give me your Mount Rushmore favorite wines?
Well, of course, my response to that always is whatever wine someone else pays for.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. You can listen, if you have four friends, that's four right on Mount Rushmore right there.
Right. But I would guess actually my favorite wine is called Chateau Cheval Blanc. It's a Saint Emilion. Yeah. Well, maybe you have, because it was featured in the movie Sideways. And you've probably seen the movie Sideways.
I have not, but I've heard of it.
Okay. So it's about $800 a bottle right now. So I doubt I'm ever going to taste it again.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So, Gary, you work heavily with the, farmers and growers throughout the region here in South Jersey. Being that it's March, what's a typical day for you like now as we're getting into, growing season? We're getting our last frosts and, freezes here across the area. What's going on with you?
Well, I mean, we just kind of wrapped up meeting season, a lot of what I do in January, February, and into March is set up meetings for the grape growers, I also work with the blueberry growers. So there's the ag convention in Atlantic City that, of course, was virtual this year. But I had to set up the blueberry session for that. I had to set up the grape session, which means, a succession of speakers. And right. And then this past Saturday, we did a grape meeting. It's the 37th year for that meeting. It's called Grape Expectations, and which I should have patented that 37 years ago, because now I hear it all over the place. But as far as I know, we were the one that came up with Grape Expectations. But so we had pathologists are there, entomologists. What we try to do is bring in people that will give growers the information to make their life a little easier. And then the other thing that happened in that meeting was I brought we did a virtual tasting with a fellow named Bryce Dilla Morandiri, and he is managing director at Domaine Laflave in Burgundy, France, and probably makes the best Chardonnay in the world. And in fact, his top end one is called Batard Martucci, is $1,600 a bottle. So, but you think that maybe all this virtual thing is stepping down from in person, but there's no way I could have brought somebody of his stature from Burgundy, France, to this meeting in New Jersey. But we did have him on this meeting, and it was just fabulous. He's the fourth generation of this winery, and to talk about what they're doing now, how they're dealing with global warming, how they keep the quality going through generations. It was really fabulous. It really was. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I always say, please God, just get me to April 1st. Because then that's meeting season. And then
Right.
absolutely in April 1st, then I'm getting calls from grape guys and also blueberry guys. But, these plants don't look too good. Can you come out and take a look at them? Can you diagnose the problem, etc.? So it kind of transitions from in my office meetings to out in the field. And to be honest, that's what I really love, is out in the field.
Sure. So are you kind of like the plant doctor?
Yeah, I mean that's that's what the PhD is in, really. I mean, it's
That
a
is true.
plant doctor.
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, if a person comes to me and they don't feel too well, I can't help them. But
Right.
but a plant, I can help you. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So, one of the interesting things I got to ask, because we're both from northeastern New Jersey originally. You're from Bergen County, and I don't even think there's a farm in Bergen County. So, how did you get interested in agriculture?
Yeah, there's very few farms left. But the other thing was, I grew up in a town called Upper Saddle River, which is all the way in the north. It's right on the New York border, actually.
Sure.
When we moved there were strawberry farms, there were vegetable farms. Right down from the end of our street, there was a little farm stand, and my father would take my brother and I there, and he would say to the woman there, well, do you have any green beans? And she said, well, they're out in the field, they're ready, but they haven't been picked yet. They're going to pick them tomorrow morning. And my father would say, well, would you mind if we went out and picked them? And which when you're like 9 or 10 kind of blows your mind, but my father would take the two of us out there, and it was incredible. I mean, to be out there like that. And there was actually a dairy down the street also. And I remember walking into the dairy, and of course, a dairy with all those cows, there's a certain smell there, And
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and my brother and I, we're not keen on that smell, but my father would go, oh, I love that. I just love that. So, it was, he really, put us on this track. Absolutely. He really did.
Yeah. It's funny you say about the smell, because one smell that I like that I know a lot of people don't like is low tide. I love that low tide smell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the anaerobic aromas that come. And when you're on the parkway, and you're going from Atlantic County to Burlington County, and you cross over the river there, the Mullica River, and it's low tide. It. That's right.
Oh yeah. I mean, I take that route every day, and I'm going by it, and then I'm like, I don't know why people. It just reminds me that I'm at the shore. I mean, like yourself. I mean, I'm from Union originally, so like going down the shore was a day trip or a week-long trip. Now I'm like, I'm here. I'm here.
That's
it's
right.
cool. I'm glad, So, it's actually interesting too, because, and we both went to Rutgers, I should say.
Well, I mean, I went through the ag school at Rutgers. Then I actually spent a little time running the greenhouses at Duke Gardens in Somerville. And they used to have botanical gardens there, and which were absolutely gorgeous. But it was inside, it was greenhouses, and that wasn't really my thing. So I got a research assistant position at the University of Arkansas, and that was basically set up by a couple of my old professors at Rutgers, and I was going to work for a fellow that was breeding grapes, breeding blueberries, breeding peaches, breeding blackberries. And I was going to be his right-hand man. And along the way, they would also pay you for your master's. And it was an incredible experience, because we were releasing these new blackberries and releasing new grapes and strawberries and things like that. So then I was there for 5 years, and I wrapped up the master's, and my professor said, well, now it's time to get the PhD. And I thought to myself, oh my God, isn't that enough school already? And he said to me, he says, let me tell you something. He says, what a master's person does is go into the university every day and ask the PhD, what should I do today? The PhD every day says to everybody else, this is what you should do today. He goes,
yeah.
I know you. I know that you want to be the person that says, this is what you should do today. So I said, oh my God, I guess I'm going for the PhD. So I came back up to Rutgers and started the PhD.
And you did it. So I take it you're more of the leader kind of personality here. You're not a type B.
Well, yeah, I mean, I like the flexibility. See, one thing I love about this position is that there are no restraints. When a grower comes to me and says, I'm having this problem, all right, nobody's going to tell me you can't attack that problem. I mean, that's the thing I love. So, right. I've spent the last 37 years doing exactly that. If there's a grower that has some kind of problem, a nutrition problem, a disease problem, an insect problem, whatever, we can attack it. And that's, I really love that, because the thing is that, you go someplace that is having big problems and you go there and you fix the problem. And as a result, the grower is happy, he's making money, the crop is increased as far as yield, et cetera. So all of that, I just, you go home at night and you just feel good, you just feel good that you were able to do that. And
helping other people.
So that's what I really love about it.
Sure. And now you're working in both Atlantic County and Cape May County. Are there any differences that you're doing between the two? I mean, I know you have different positions. Does that make a difference, or is it still the same?
Well, actually, I do statewide.
Okay.
I do statewide on blueberries. I do statewide in grapes.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm from Sussex to Cape May on both those crops.
You see it all.
And yeah, I mean, I've worked with starting wineries throughout the whole state. So again, the nice thing about extension is that they don't clamp any barriers on me at all, right. And that's great. That's the great thing. I love that flexibility in the position.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk more about, the wine industry. We're going to talk about the weather. We're going to talk about climate change. We're going to do that right after the break. We'll be back with you. This is Something in the Air podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to the Something in the Air podcast, brought to you by the Press of Atlantic City. New episodes first and third Wednesdays of the month. And for this third Wednesday of March, we have Gary Pavlis of the Rutgers, New Jersey Agricultural Experiment Station. He's both in Mays Landing, spends a little bit of time in Cape May. And as he said before, he spends time all throughout the Great Garden State of New Jersey. So, Gary, let me ask you, are you a weather guy, or is it kind of just something that's part of your job?
It's just part of my job. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad. I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we really, let's face it, when you deal with agriculture, you got to know something about the weather. I mean, it's, it affects everything you do. So, if you're going to be inside, you have a job that's inside, it doesn't mean as much, but, we have to keep track of this stuff,
Sure.
And from the spring right through to, well, it's the whole year, really,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was just going to say, how we first got started talking here is, how'd you talk to me a little bit about wintertime climate change in New Jersey and its impacts on the farming industry. And, New Jersey, and really for most of the country, like east of the Rockies, winter is the fastest warming month. So according to Climate Central, winter has warmed 4 degrees on average during the months of December, January, and February from 1970 to now. And that actually like more than doubles in some cases the other seasons, generally doubling what they have in the other seasons. And you actually said something, on the surface I think sounded weird to me, but once you started digging into it, it kind of made sense. And you said, the number one thing to consider what you can grow are wintertime temperatures. And maybe that sounds a little counterintuitive, but what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, what I mean is, if I go down to Florida and dig up a palm tree, all right, and plant it in front of my office here, it'll do just fine. May, June, July, August, September, October. Somewhere around November, it's going to drop dead because it just can't make it through our winter, and that's the reality of it. Winter determines what you could grow, and when we pick varieties of grapes, for instance, it's all about the temperatures. It's interesting. I got a phone call just 2 days ago from someone that wants to do a winery in Florida. And they said, well, what grapes should I grow? I said, listen, I really don't have any idea what grapes to grow in Florida. I said, I know you're not going to grow Chardonnay, Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, all those, because actually those need a certain amount of hours below 45 degrees, and you're just not going to get it, in the Miami area.
Yeah.
So I said, you got to contact the University of Florida for that. I have no idea what to tell you.
I mean, usually when you think of grape growing, you think of a Mediterranean climate, right? Which is, a little bit on the drier side during the summer. I would imagine, given that Miami's pretty much tropical year round, it's got to be tough.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, in New Jersey here, what are the most popular kind of varieties that we can grow because of the weather? Because obviously we do get below 45 many times throughout the year.
Yeah, we really can't put New Jersey, the whole state, onto one plate.
Sure.
In northern Jersey, the cooler varieties such as Pinot Noir and Riesling do really well, but the season usually is not long enough for something like Cabernet Sauvignon, which needs a really long season. On the other hand, when you go to Cape May, it's really, and all of South Jersey, it's too hot to grow a really nice Riesling or Pinot Noir. But the season is long enough and great for Cabernet Franc and Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So now Rutgers did a study, I think 3 years ago, and right now we surveyed all the wineries, all the vineyards, and they're growing 87 different varieties of grapes.
Wow.
So obviously,
I didn't know there were that many.
Oh yeah. Oh geez. Yeah. And there are grapes that everybody seems to grow, like Chardonnay, but everybody's experimenting. They're really experimenting with different grapes, Gruner Veltliner from Austria, that's come in. I mean, that's really looking good in northern New Jersey. Albarino from Spain is looking really good in southern New Jersey. So we're getting into the Italian varieties, the Sangiovese, and Dolcetta, and all of these grapes. Everybody's just trying, but so it's not like France, where they've been doing it for 2,000 years. So they really have it down as to what grape they want to grow. Burgundy grows Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. That's it. Well, they've been doing that for 2,000 years.
Right.
The explosion in New Jersey just happened in the early 80s. So, we haven't been at it a long time. Some grapes do very well. But, does Gruner Veltliner do well here? Well, nobody had ever tried it before. So we got to give it a shot.
Sure. Just going back to climate change real quick, I believe you were saying that over the past couple of decades, you've noticed a northward shift in actually growing the grapes. Am I correct?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
We used to say, when I came here in the 80s, I used to say that you can't grow vinifera grapes, which vinifera is the Vitis vinifera from Europe, the Chardonnays, the Cabernets, the Cabernet Franc. I used to say, you can't grow them north of Trenton. And that's it. I said, just don't bother. Don't do it. Right. Because you're going to, well, for instance, I mean, I ran the New Jersey wine competition for 30 years, and there used to be a winery called Tewksbury Winery, and they won the Governor's Cup with a Gewürztraminer and I think it was 84 or 85. Well, they planted the grapes, they made the wine, and the year after they made the wine and won the best wine in New Jersey, the vineyard was killed by the winter. So, that was the reality of this back then in the 80s.
Yeah.
But now, vinifera's all the way up into the Hunterdon County and Warren County. Sussex is still a little chancy, but absolutely, the vinifera has moved north because the winters have gotten warmer.
Right. And you said in the piece when we were talking, this was more for blueberry growing, so you can extend this to grapes if you think it's relevant. But, really climate change hasn't really been a negative for growing blueberries and maybe even grapes here in the Garden State.
Well, that's right. The number one thing to worry about if you're growing grapes is the winter. And if the winter's, as you mentioned, 4 degrees higher, that's a positive. That's a definite positive. Now, the negative is that we have been experiencing some more dramatic storms, more rainfall, et cetera. So, the last thing you want with grapes in September, for instance, is a whole lot of rain, because it just dilutes the wine that you would make from it. But
Sure.
If we can dodge that bullet, then we're actually better off.
And, something when I talked to a couple other farmers too was, overall, yes, it has been positive, but we still haven't been able to shake off those late season freezes or frosts. And that could also play a role into this as well, right?
Oh, frost is a problem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you will get a frost in May, and that hurts. I think it was only like 3 years ago, the peach crop was just wiped out. And we have a research farm in Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Central Jersey. And I do some of my grape work there. And at bloom with peaches is gorgeous. That farm is 200 acres and it's, they're breeding peaches there. And it's just all this pink every place. And it's beautiful. Well, that year there was no pink. All the blossoms were cooked. And it was, it really it was depressing. And it was depressing to me. You can imagine what it was like for growers,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
but,
sure.
So spring frost can definitely be a big problem. With the blueberry guys, grape guy, well, anybody, that will experience frost damage.
Look what happened last year on May 13th. This is my birthday, by the way. We had a low temperature of 31 degrees, so we were below freezing in Indian Mills, way in the Pine Barrens, but still we did have a freeze during that time. So they're still happening, just because the climate overall is, on the upward trajectory, that doesn't mean you're still not getting, very cold weather. It's just usually happening less frequently. So, all right, so let's get into the good story here. Tell us about your role in the wine industry in New Jersey. You said in the early 80s, we had this explosion. You have a lot to do with it. How did it all happen? How did you get involved so deeply in this?
Well, my primary thing that I was supposed to do in Atlantic County was the blueberry industry. We have between Burlington and Atlantic County, there's 8,000 acres of blueberries. And so really that was what my number one crop should be. But I was collecting wine when I was a graduate student in New Brunswick, getting my PhD. And so I loved wine, but that wasn't something that I was really doing down here for the first few years. But I went to a wine festival at Tomasello Winery in Hamilton. And Charlie Tomasello said to me, he goes, Rutgers is not doing anything with the wineries, with the vineyards at all. They're not touching it whatsoever. He said, Gary, we really need somebody that would look into this industry and help this industry. And I thought, well, my job description says blueberries and other fruit. And I thought, well, it's right on paper there. I think I can do this. And so, we put a variety trial at the research station. I put in everything from Cabernet Sauvignon to Concord, just to see, okay, what grows, what doesn't grow, And so that was in like 1986, 87. And right around that also, we got passed in New Jersey, the Farm Winery Act. You see, one of the things that happened was left over from Prohibition, which, was a terrible thing for this country. Was we had rules in this country that in this state that said you could only have one winery per million people. So we only had 7 wineries in the state, and the Farm Winery Act said, well, if you use Jersey fruit, you can start a winery based on that fruit. So that's when people started calling me up and saying, okay, how do you do this? What's it going to cost? What varieties should we grow? And most of the wineries, we have almost 60 wineries now. Most of the wineries have started in my office. Someone will call up, say, what's involved? I say, well, let's get together for lunch. And I usually did that for lunch because the thing is I figure it takes about an hour to kind of go over the basics with these people. And I figure I got to eat lunch anyway. And about only 1 out of 3 will go ahead because they don't realize that this is actually farming, So I figure I'm not wasting that hour because I've got to eat lunch anyway,
Was there wine at lunch?
And the other nice thing too is of course, they almost feel compelled to go ahead and pay for the lunch. So that's always a nice thing too. So, people would come and we would go over it. And so that's how most of the wineries in the state have actually started.
I got to ask, was there wine at lunch?
Not usually.
Not usually.
Not usually,
okay.
No.
Maybe they invite you down to a winery afterwards. They'll give you some of the wine.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Real quick, we have about 30 seconds, 60 seconds left here. What's the next big thing for wine here and grape growing in New Jersey? Is there anything you see on the horizon? Well,
I mean, the one thing that the technology that's coming is incredible. We just held this meeting on Saturday, and the technology that's coming, it blows your mind because the thing is, we have a lot of, for instance, fungal diseases here because they love the fact that we get 26 inches of rain between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So, I always say, the old saying, New Jersey and you perfect together. Well, New Jersey and fungus perfect together, Well, there's technology out there now showing that the use of UV light at night going over the plants kills the fungus. And so down the road, we won't spray anymore. We won't spray for those anymore. The other is that Rutgers is working on something. It's a system called CRISPR. And CRISPR is you actually take the gene out of a variety that makes that variety susceptible to that disease. So again, this is where we're going. And of course, this is not just New Jersey, but the future really looks bright. I got to tell you, the future really looks bright. And I'm glad I'm here to see it,
Yeah. I tell people all the time, even with weather, I said, the amount of technology we have with satellites that update every minute, radar, everything, it's great. I mean, it's not a bad thing. So I'm glad you're embracing it,
Absolutely.
and it's going to make for some, better grapes, better blueberries, better plants here in New Jersey. And hey, we'll take it. So, that being said, Gary, we're going to wrap it up. I mean, this was great. I'd love to have you come back on, maybe tell some more stories. But this was a great intro to you and what you're doing and the grape and blueberry industry here. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I think the last thought would be anybody that hasn't experienced New Jersey wine needs to go out there because we are winning awards constantly. We win awards in California against California wines. We win all the time. The winery that won the best Merlot, for instance, in New Jersey, also won at the San Francisco Chronicle competition and beat every Merlot entered from all over the country. So you really need to go out and experience New Jersey wine.
Kicking butt and taking names, just the way we like it in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
That's it. All right. Well, Gary, thanks so much for the time again. We appreciate it. This is going to wrap up our Something in the Air podcast. We'll be back with you. New episode the first Wednesday in April. We'll be joined by another Rutgers guy, New Jersey State climatologist Dr. Dave Robinson. We'll recap the month of March that was. Until then, stay safe, and we will see everybody then. Take care.